Hello to one and all Advertigers watching this interview. This is Hetansh here, and today I have the pleasure of speaking with Sanjay ji, someone I know through Twitter. I initially interacted with him via Twitter, and then I've been following his work. Mr. Sanjay runs an agency in Nagpur, Shells Advertising, and has been running it since 35 long years and has kept it profitable. And is one of the most reputed personalities in the field of advertising, a voracious reader, a very passionate ad man. Sanjay ji, welcome, and thank you so much for sparing the time to do this.
Thank you so much, Hetansh. It's a real pleasure, and I am humbled that you chose me to be talking to you this afternoon. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. It's an honor for me and for everyone who would be watching this. So, sir, I do know you. I have been following you. But just for our viewers, if you could just tell a little about yourself, how did you initially build interest in advertising, how the agency came into picture?
Okay, so this is a very, very old story. You've actually got me out of the archives in a way, So this goes back some 38 years when I got into MBA. And at that point in time, I honestly did not know what I was going to do in the future. The whole idea was to somehow find a job because my father was not doing too well in our traditional business of selling watches and electronic material. Those were bad times for the country's economy too, and the traditional businesses were kind of not doing too well, and therefore I wanted to get a job as early as possible. And the whole idea was, after finishing my BSc, I got into MBA, and as soon as one would be placed. But after our first year of MBA, we were to do a internship, and till that time, believe me, those were such innocent times, if I can put it that way, or we were so ignorant that I hadn't heard the word advertising agency. I did not know such an organization existed till my first year of MBA. Compare that to students now. Okay, they probably know an ad agency while they're still in school because there are so many shows, etc. So that was the level of ignorance there. So when I was kind of finishing the first year and was ready to apply for internship in various organizations, a senior of mine who was in the second year of our MBA, he told me, why don't you look at an advertising agency as an option also? So that was the first time the word advertising agency hit me. And I said, "Wahan kya hota hai?" So he said, all these ads that we see, most of the time you only have print ads. Television, there was only Doordarshan. So not much advertising there. So he said, some models and all that, created the interest. Oh, models, that sounds interesting now. Okay. So then I started looking up as to where ad agencies are located, etc. Now, since all my relatives were in Delhi, so despite being from Maharashtra, I didn't apply for agencies in Mumbai because I had no place to stay there. I could afford staying in a hotel or etc. So then I applied to as many agencies I could get the addresses of in Delhi for an internship, and finally managed to crack only one out of those 50 odd applications that I sent, because no one wanted people from town they'd never heard of called Nagpur then. So one small agency in Daryaganj called Impact Advertising finally wrote to me saying that, okay, we'll take you up as an intern. And when I went there, this was, I think, as soon as summer holidays started for us in MBA, I guess May. So I just loved what I saw. Though the agency was small, but the benefit of being in a small agency was that you could get into any department you want. So one was not into silos. Like in a big agency, what happens is if you join the servicing area as an intern, you would probably not be allowed into the creative, right? Here, I would sit in the studio, I would sit with the copywriter, assist him for some time, and go into servicing, accompany a senior executive to a client meeting, etc. So and there were very nice people there. So I got an exposure to everything. And by the time I finished the 2 months of internship, I requested them, can I continue here till Diwali? And I'd written to my institute that if I don't come and join till the Diwali and I join only the second term, is it okay because I'm working here? So they gave me an okay, and that led to the agency. And they said, okay, you can continue, because they were giving me a pitifully 350 rupees a month or something, so it's not much to them too. And they had an additional hand. So they allowed me to continue till September, October then. And by the time I got through, I was sure that this is the career I want. So despite being picked up by Seat Tires when we finished our MBA, I decided not to take that job. Without a job in hand, I went to Delhi, and I didn't know there was no internet. Of course, there were no computers to begin with. Everything was hand done, and I just picked up a bunch of Xeroxes of my biodata. I didn't even know how to apply well. There was no placement division in the MBA institute, etc. Then all these are stuff. This is we take for granted now, but it was a very different time. So I would walk into every agency physically and speak to the receptionist. I'm looking for a job, and is there an opening? And leave the biodata with them. And of course, 10, 15 days, about 30, 40 agencies I visited. Heat, summers, Delhi, and no job. Fortunately, I had relatives there, so staying and boarding lodging was not a problem. Finally, I cracked one agency again, which was again a small agency called Alfred Allen Advertising on Janpat in Delhi. And they gave me a start with an account executive, client service person for 950 rupees a month or something like that. And that's how my journey in advertising started. And then soon I got a break in then one of the larger agencies called Everest, which was in collaboration with Saatchi and Saatchi Worldwide, which was then the world's #1 agency. That was a big break for me. And having worked there for some time, I realized I'm not a large town person. And fortunately for me, I'm saying, because everything is looking back, you can connect dots and you can figure out क्या हो रहा है. उस समय खराब लगता था. My account manager, the group manager that I was reporting to, was a sadist. He would trouble me no end, without any rhyme or reason. I would be asked to wait in the office, scream at me in front of everyone, etc., etc. So I one day got so frustrated, I left the office. I didn't tell anyone anything at all, and just took the train back to Nagpur that evening. I didn't go back to the office the next day. They kept wondering. I kept getting registered notices. The registered post was the only method. And finally, I got a firing letter from them. It's been 2 months that you've not reported to office, and we have to fire you, etc., etc. So that's how one chapter of my life closed. So by the time I was in Nagpur, my father still had this watch shop, and behind that, all the mechanics used to sit, who would repair watches and transistors, etc. And there was an additional kind of a plank coming out of a wall, which was functioned as a table for me. And I said, look, Dad, I'm starting an ad agency here. So he said, यार ये क्या इश्तिहार कर रहे हो? दुकान पे बैठ जाओ, you'll make 10-15,000 रुपए a month. I said, no, I've seen you since childhood sitting on one stool and managing a shop. I can't get into that. I know a little bit of advertising. Let me do what I can. Let's see. नहीं चला तो फिर of course shop है. So as a one-man show, without anything, no support at all. So I started this ad agency, and I would get some freelance work done through some artists, meet clients, try and build relationships, and step by step then hired my first artist in the first week itself, and gradually build this whole thing into what we were fortunate. There is destiny, so one should take all the credit, but yes, God has been very kind, and we could scrape through and finally get it to what we are doing.
What a journey. Absolutely loved hearing that. Now it's been 35 years to that day when you started the agency just behind, just in your neighborhood. Keeping an agency profitable, I think, is one of the biggest challenges.
Yes.
Because at times there are delays in payments. You're not sure you always get the retainer that you quote.
You never get the retainer that you quote.
You never get the retainer, absolutely. So how do you keep it, so how do you keep this balance between commerce and art? How do you ensure that the agency is profitable while at the same time you're not compromising on your deliverables, on the art, on what you've committed to the client?
Yeah, so there are many factors at play here. When I started this agency, most agencies in Nagpur city, and there were very many then also, but they were all agents in a way. No one had a proper studio or something, So most agents, what they do is take the material, whatever was to be published from the client in terms of content, go to a newspaper house, get it composed, and put one visual or something. Because during those times, blocks, printing used to happen with blocks. And generation doesn't even know what a block is. It's an engraved design on a metal sheet which gets planked onto a wooden block, and that goes for printing. So that in a way was how crude printing was there then. So even then, as these agents would, so we get a 15% commission from media. Those times we used to. Things have completely changed now. So that from that 15%, they would retain about 2 or 3% and pass on the rest to the client, and that was their only way to compete with each other. So no one would talk about the quality of work. They would only say, okay, he's giving a 10% cut, I'll give you a 12% cut, someone would give a 13% cut. Now, the place I was coming from was a different kind of an area, a completely different kind of an environment. So I said, look, you can't build a business or even continue in being business at 2 or 3%. You need to do good work, and for that you should be paid. So when I started, despite not having a single client, then my this thing was very clear. I would not part with any percentage as far as it. That was a big thing, not only in town, even then, otherwise also. In the entire nation, all small agencies would part with commission to get business. So I said, look, this 15% is for the agency. And if we have to grow and give clients good work, I have to retain this 15%. That is the only way I can do this. So from then on, the focus became very clear. Deliver work which can get you a higher price. I believed even then, and I believe now, that there will be segments in the market. You can't cater to every segment. Like in every business, there are mobile phones available for 3,000 rupees, and there are mobile phones available for $1.5 lakh. And there is a segment for each one. Now, if you can build enough value, people will queue up to buy that $1.5 lakh mobile phone too. Okay, both serve the same function probably, but then you need to know what value the client is looking for in that mobile phone. And then similarly in the service industry too, if you look around, there is a spectrum always. There are those who charge very steep in terms of, but then if the clients believe they're delivering value at that price, there's nothing, you can't fault the client for that, right? And you have to be consistent at delivering that value. So that was the formula. I said, okay, I will not part with discount. I will charge separately for design. Even then, a 24-year-old guy entering a market and saying, look, these are my terms and conditions. I have no business at this point in time. Yet I will not take on business if these are not met. I should say I was rather fortunate to have some people who had some faith in me and kind of experimented, because that was completely new ball game here. Okay, so आप करके दिखाइए क्या कर सकते हैं. We used to, I used to sit and write copy, then get good design done. Sometimes, send it out to Delhi to my old friend, art director, the agency that I used to work for a larger campaign kind of. So that kind of work was never seen in the city ever before. So that created a kind of a shock value. कि ऐसा भी काम हो सकता है city के brands. So that got clients coming in. And believe me, see, there are a lot of things when you look back, you can't take all the credit. I always keep repeating this. Because there were many good agencies that started somewhere around when I started. But I was the only one to survive. So there is a lot of good destiny there. And they were all good. They were all intelligent people who started. Because the advertising business, I believe, is one of the highest fatality industries. I've seen in Nagpur city itself, thousands of agencies going under. Thousands, not hundreds. Because it's been 35 years. Okay. Today, there would not be more than a dozen odd agencies which are really active in that, having silk work or something. Oh, when I started, there were 100 plus ad agencies. And during this, I'm saying 1,000 more that started and shut shop. Why does this happen? Because the business is so amorphous. If you're not clearly focused on what you would be saving in the long run, okay, and reinvesting in the business other than on your own pleasure, the likelihood of you not detecting the leakage in the business is very, very high. Because suppose you're making 4%, if you're giving out 11% or 10% at discount, and you're making say 5%. Now, out of those 5%, there are so many expenses that you need to look at. Some expenses are very visible. Okay, you have a salary to pay, you have an electricity bill to pay, etc. Then some expenses you can't account for, or you can account for, but people don't. Is depreciation, is things going wrong, bank interest on overdue payments, all those kind of expenses. At the end of the day, it is these small holes that sink the ship. The big expenses you can account for, and there are, okay, despite being very, very careful, even we've lost money on some very large clients. Okay. In fact, there was a time in about a year and a half, 2 of our major clients defaulted, and the total amount was a crore of rupees plus. Complete default. One client went under completely. He was untraceable. The other simply sold off, I can't name names, sold off his business to someone else who said, I'm not taking on any liabilities. Talk to the guy who sold it to me. And that guy disappeared to Bombay. So in a year and a half's time, we lost 1 crore of rupees. But we were able to see that through because one, our relationships with media were very good because we always paid on time before that. We've always paid media on time. So that's okay. They understood these people, they had seen it themselves also. So that's okay, we'll wait for the payments to come as you grow and make money, and you can pay this back to us while your regular business continues. So they also stood by us. And two, there were some reserves that I had built over the period of time. So what I'm trying to say is, despite me not being from the finance industry, I have done a BSc biology. I don't know accounts. Even today, when my accountant comes to me and says, "इसको debit कर दिया, उसको credit कर दिया," मुझे एक मिनट. Tell me, इससे पैसा लेना है अपने को या देना है उसको. Believe me, I am not exaggerating for a second. I cannot read a balance sheet. I have not read my balance sheet. I just sign where my chartered accountant tells me. But in my mind, I have a big picture. ये आना, ये जाना, इतना बाजू में कर लिया अपन ने, ये ठीक है. So, not being a finance person and least interested in finance, despite that, because I keep the big picture in mind, I have additional revenues more than what is visible. I can keep a track of separately. That is how I ensure that business stays profitable. And two, as I said, I have always tried to deliver quality of work that happens in any metro to a Nagpurian, and therefore charge a little more for that. And then once you get known for that, that guy charges more, then only those clients who come to, with agreeable with that mindset come to you. Others don't, which actually filters out all the crap much before they reach you.
Right.
So that positioning happens for you over a period of time. वो काम अच्छा करता है पर महंगा है. तो जो आ रहा है वो सोच के आ रहा है, इसको पैसे ज्यादा देने पड़ेंगे, तो आपको ज्यादा कन्विंस करने की जरूरत नहीं पड़ती. And also, of course, it was a small town now. For example, the same thing might not work for you in Ahmedabad. Because Ahmedabad has a range of players, huge, humongous numbers, some very good people giving very good prices too. So it will become very difficult in a town like Ahmedabad. I was lucky that I was in Nagpur and there was really no professional advertising agency till that time. So I had this huge first mover advantage. So contextual भी रहती है चीजें, as I'm saying again and again, कि destiny का बहुत बड़ा role रहता है. So that is why. But yes, you have to have a sharp eye on what your expenses are and what your revenues are and how much are you at the end of the month saving. उसमें से बचना चाहिए पैसा, and that should not be used for personal luxuries, but somewhere, in terms of investment, so somewhere, so that tomorrow, which is bound to happen on a rainy day, you have something to fall back. The rainy day is bound to happen. There is any business which goes through 30, 40 years will see ups and downs, and you have to be prepared for those downturns.
Right. One thing that you do mention repeatedly is how it worked out for you in Nagpur. These days, and since a long time, there is this craze of advertising brands wanting to offer agencies based out of a metro, advertising professionals wanting to flee to a metro, or maybe wanting to set up a base in a metro because that provides them with greater opportunities to work on certain national brands. What has your experience been of being in advertising in Nagpur? Is it something that people and brands should actually look at? The fact that you don't always necessarily need to go to a Mumbai, Delhi, Bangalore, but look at maybe a smaller place. Maybe their solutions might be at par, maybe their prices might be even better. But just what's overall your take on this?
So, there is no doubt that in our profession too, the most excellent work happens out of metros because they are magnets for talent. The best talent migrates to metros, and by virtue of that, the best quality of work does happen in metros. You can't really. So you might have an exception, one guy moves to a small town who's very, very good, but then he doesn't have an entire ecosystem. So if he's a good art director, he may not get an equally good copywriter along with it. If he's a good copywriter, he may not have a finishing artist. So many things, like basic film में बननी होती है, commercial. So you have a complete ecosystem of right from people like food stylists for food, like makeup artists. That ecosystem exists in a large town, definitely, yes. So there is no doubt that metros do churn out the best quality of work. Exceptions being there, but not on a regular basis can a small town produce. But then, not all small town clients need a metro-based agency because they also have minimum size of billing. These kind of agencies have a minimum billing that you need to commit to them. And not all clients can commit to that kind of a billing structure, number one. Two, the cost structure itself is very, very, because they are paying for everything, for space rentals, for people. They are paying far more than we do in a smaller agency. So for a similar client service person, if I am paying say 40 grand a month, maybe they're paying 80 grand a month. For the same space, the space is many, many times more expensive. So all those kind of issues come into play. So their cost structure being high, they have to charge far more. And we in a smaller town can charge far less for the same kind of work. Okay. So that's the differentiator, number one. Two, there will always be clients. It has happened to us also, and we have to be prepared for that. That you nurture them to a certain size, and then they want to go to a metro because they feel they've become too big, and they feel that they've become big, and therefore they need those kind of inputs, which at times we should agree to, we may not be able to provide. But for most clients, I think we are in a position to provide the kind of inputs they need. For most clients, exceptional cases being separately taken care of. So those clients, if you can convince them, then look, accessibility, availability, top management involvement, because in a metro, a large agency, some guy down below, a client services manager will be handling them. Here, they have access to top management, the owner, the proprietor, partner, and other senior members involved in this account. So that kind of involvement from the agency, plus accessibility, we are only a call away, and maybe we can be at your place in the next half an hour if so situation demands. Okay, so that kind of turnaround time. We have clients who come in in the afternoon for a full page advertisement on the next day's newspaper. We've done that, which doesn't happen in a large agency. Can never happen probably in a large agency unless pre-planned. Okay, so those kind of, there are advantages to a small town agency which cannot be equaled by a large town agency. So they are also there. And if you can over the long term add, I believe 80% or 70% of what a large agency can do, the client will be more than happy to stay. In exceptional cases, of course. So we've had examples of clients who shifted out of our fold, went to Mumbai, which is only an hour's flight from Nagpur, had their business taken care of by large, good brands, decent work happened. But over a period of time, they realized the cost, the pains that, and the bureaucracy of a large agency are too much for their taste. So they came back to us. ऐसा भी होता है. After experiencing a large agency, they came back to us. While some have
which is the best sign, a client coming back. Yeah.
While some don't also, because they are happy with the large agency. Both sides. But you will always have enough business to take care of your agency. वो कोई tension नहीं है.
Right.
Some business कभी भी आपको नहीं मिल सकता है ना. So you have to be satisfied with your pie of your share.
Absolutely. Your view on current advertising, some of your favorite ads right now, maybe in the past, some you might have worked on, some otherwise.
Because as far as I am concerned, being the old school guy, I believe very little. If I were to measure, most work that used to come out of large agencies, and good agencies. When I'm saying large, not necessarily large, but even good agencies, the average was far superior to the kind of work that is happening now. I'm talking about 25 years ago. So you had the advertising greats like Alec Madamsi, Piyush Pandey, maybe hai, but all those, they were in their heydays. So there was Trikaya Grey, there was Rediffusion, the Gupta of Trikaya Grey, the kind of work. I'm forgetting the name of that copywriter who migrated from India to Singapore. So that quality of work was very consistent at that point in time. All major agencies and small ones also used to produce a Mohammed Khan of enterprise, extraordinary work. I don't see that quality of work happening now in this. Okay, there are flashes in the pan. One campaign suddenly, comes out to be extreme, no doubt about it. I think the reason for that is everything was, had to be thought through, done by hand, and there were artists who would be very skilled, and everything used to be, every image was created by small spray guns and all those kind of things. Digital, while it has compressed the time that is needed for something to be done, for example, one brochure used to take a good 3 months to do during those times. Good 3 months for one brochure, okay, which can be finished in less than a week now.
Absolutely.
And some capabilities of IT are far superior to whatever could be ever be done by hand. Okay, but then there is a lot of templating that is happening, and there's a lot of similar kind of vectors being used, similar kind of illustrations and pictures being used from Shutterstock. So most work looks very similar. It doesn't stand out. I'm talking about average work. There are, as I'm saying, some campaigns which are brilliant and out of the box, yes, but they are few and far between, which used to be a routine thing once upon a time. Because most people, koi brief mila, first thing that they do is go to the internet, start looking up things, start looking up inspiration or whatever you call it, okay? And then what happens is you get biased and you come back with similar kind of stuff and same kind of backgrounds picked up from somewhere, vector picked up from somewhere or something, तो काफी सिमिलर दिखने लगती है चीजें और हर एक जगह वही हर इंसान वहीं पहुंच रहा है इंस्पिरेशन के लिए वही बिहाइंड पे कभी इधर तो वो ओरिजिनल थॉट कहीं ना कहीं वी आर लूजिंग आउट कम हो गया डेफिनेटली कम हो गया बट हाँ पावरफुल हो गए टूल्स बहुत and you can do so much which you just couldn't once upon a time. So for example, photo editing was such a big thing once upon a time that you have to crop one picture out of a group and place it somewhere. You would need a really skillful person to do that and take days for that to happen precisely. अभी तो बच्चे करते हैं कॉलेज के, so memes बनाते हैं all that. So power of the tool is great now, but that has also somehow contributed to a similar kind of looking work everywhere.
Right. Your message for a young advertising professional, or maybe looking back, what would you say to Sanjay ji, who was maybe 25, 30, starting out?
Okay, so I'll tell you very honestly, when we started in advertising would attract the best talent in India. Even in the IMs, from the IMs also we had people, and the smartest lot would come to advertising. It was such a glamorous industry and it paid the best also. Advertising was one of the highest paying industries then amongst the competitive. Aaj, if you're coming to it to make a career or money, it is nowhere in the list. Okay, so only if you're really passionate about it because of something that draws you from the inside to such a creative industry, does it make sense coming to it? Because neither is the money the best, nor the hours, nor the quality of life, whatever. So it has, if you overcome all these hurdles and still want to be in advertising, only then come to advertising. Otherwise, it is not worth it at this point in time. If you ask me very, very honestly, but if you're passionate about this business, then you will sacrifice XYZ and come. So, आज की स्थिति वो, उस समय times were very different. You would get the smartest people in advertising.
So you were in that sense, you would consider yourself also very fortunate to have been in advertising in your peak while the industry was also
yes. The amount of learning one got because of these smart people being there. Despite being in Nagpur, I became a member of the Ad Club of Bombay and AAA of I would attend their workshops, training programs, etc. So the learning was phenomenal and it was really exciting being in this industry. It is no longer so.
Right.
Not as much. I may dilute it a little. Otherwise, I may be turning away a lot of good talent. But yes, it was a talent magnet then, which it is kind of not as big now.
Right. I think with that, it brings me to the end of list of questions that I had. Thank you so much, Sanjay ji, for sparing the time for conversing with us. And I continue to hope that we've seen 35 years of Shell's advertising. I hope to meet you when it turns 50.
Oh, I may not be around. My son has joined me now, so you'll probably run into him.
Absolutely.
So despite saying
we both will be together when advertising no longer has a lot of money or fame, but for the passion of it, the two of us will be together. Yeah.
Yes, 100%. And what I was wanting to say is, despite me saying that it's not one of the best industry to be in, my son got into it. And he doesn't listen to me. He says, no, I'll be in this only. So there are still idiots out there who would want to be in this business.
Absolutely. And I think all of the people, I think, who continue to work in this industry, I think eventually would be drawn by that creative outbursts or passions, whatever it is that you call me. Probably an idiot, yeah, as you rightly said. Thank you so much, sir, for doing this. I am sure that to everyone, be it an advertising professional, be it someone who runs an agency, be it someone who is in a metro or a tier 2, tier 3 place, I think all of us have a lot of value to derive out of this conversation. So once again, thank you so much for doing this. And we wish you all the best in all your endeavors.
Thanks so very much, Hetansh, and all the very best to you also. This new endeavor that you've started is really nice. All the very best and God bless you. Thanks so much.
Thank you.